Sonny, sounds like NIFA and some other organizations doing amazing work. We're going to include some of those links here because I think a lot of the world that I exist in, a lot of the young farmers, urban farmers in New York City aren't aware of a lot of those opportunities. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with you today. The bigger question really is this transition, right? So if it took 30 years to get here, how long is it going to take us to reverse that? Is it going to take another 30 years? It sounds like you have a multi-pronged approach. I'm very interested in knowing about that. But I guess my main question here next is, you know, kind of the responsibility and the thought process of both these new farmers, these even those that are entering the space, maybe from a technological approach or a services approach, and then also those like more experienced agriculturalists who have been in the space for much longer. Could you maybe talk about what you think the attitude is that both groups should have to really solve this greater problem, this crisis, as we've identified?
Sure. Yeah. So it is, there's no doubt about it that we are sitting at a moment that, if not properly addressed and dealt with, and I gave you a number of examples of the kinds of things that have been going on now for the last at least about 10 years. Mm-hmm. So it's not like we've turned the corner yet. We've made good progress. Literally, we have tens of thousands of people entering this fold of becoming producers. And also, there's been incredible amount of investment in addressing the intellectual needs from the perspective of automating the various processes and things like that. As you probably know, agriculture is very labor intensive. And labor is at a premium for all of us. And so it ends up that automation, where it's possible, we want to incorporate that as well. Again, we provide funding for those sorts of things, for the robotics and the sensors and things like that as well. And there's a number of examples that are available of the kinds of automations that are going on currently as well. Okay, so that's in the world of automation and things like that. But more importantly, what you're talking about is, how do you bring these new entrants coming into the agricultural enterprise, into the food production enterprise, and the folks that have been around for a long time creating these partnerships and things like that. And so the new entrants coming in, so as a nation, as America, as a nation, we're about 3 generations removed from the farm. We're predominantly, as I said, an urban community. Yeah. We're 3 generations removed. Most people don't know where their food comes from and things like that. And so the folks that are coming into the agricultural enterprise today are, for example, somebody that worked on Wall Street and got tired of the rat race and says, you know what, I don't want this. Yeah. I want to raise my family, my children in a way that it's about a rat race. And I know some of these people personally. When I was in Oregon, for example, in Southern Oregon, there's a whole community of people that had left the rat race, literally left the rat race in New York City, and moved to Southern Oregon to become farmers.
It's happening a lot. I mean, I meet these people
happening all over America.
A lot of them are people we end up working with to start farms, and they're very enthusiastic. They see agriculture as the way they can make a difference. And again, that's young and old, but I guess my emphasis is on the kind of the younger generation. Like, how do they interact in a respectful way, or a way that's responsible when interacting with older generations? Because I think sometimes there's a lot of like, these young guys don't know what they're doing. They're brand new at this, or they, whatever the negative comments are that they happen. And I think that's a problem because we, like you said, we have a long transition. We have a lot of change to make. So again, for these 2 groups, what is the attitude that you'd like to see from each of them? And what are your recommendations?
So really, success in life, it doesn't matter what you're in. Success in life is all about networking. You're not going to be the Lone Ranger that's going to go and plow a new path and become successful, because the enterprise requires multiple different components to it. It doesn't matter what it is that you're doing, but particularly so in the food production enterprise, right? So think of that network. First of all, you got to know where to get land and capital and credit and things like that. Okay. You may have a lot of passion. You may even have knowledge, but then what do you do with it? If you grow something, what are you going to do with it? If you find an insect is eating up your crop, what are you going to do with it? Okay. So networking is really, really important. And then, so the connections are really important. Okay. So my advice to your listeners is, one of the first things that you might want to do, wherever you are in America, it doesn't matter what part of America, we have 3,143 counties, boroughs, and parishes and equivalents in the United States of America. Okay? There, in every one of those counties, boroughs, and parishes, we have what's referred to as Cooperative Extension Service. Okay? Extension, capital E extension. All right. One of the first things that I encourage people to do is, let's say you've been in the rat race in New York City, and you're going to move to,
Sorry. Did you see Cornell has 2 now in New York City, right? So they seem to be recognizing.
But let's say that you've been in the rat race in New York City on Wall Street. You're making these gazillions of bucks as a hedge fund manager or whatever. You made your money. You want to get out of there, and you want to take the life of a in quotes, a country squire almost, right? But it's not a squire part of it. It's really hard work. Okay, so let's say you're going to end up moving to, maybe upstate New York, or maybe you're moving to Wisconsin or whatever part of America, and you're only a few clicks away. You go to E-Extension, EXTENSION.org, E-Extension.org. We call it E-Extension because the X is a capitalized X, but it doesn't matter. Just put in EXTENSION.org. You literally type that in, and then whatever state you're in, it doesn't matter. Let's say you're in Wisconsin. It'll give you the look and feel of the University of Wisconsin extension. And let's say you move to Nevada. It's the same content, but the look and feel is now the University of Nevada, Reno. You move to Oregon, it gives you Oregon State University. You move to Maryland, it gives you University of Maryland, College Park. You move to, you're in New York, right? You get Cornell. Okay. And that's the skin. You open that skin a little bit and you go deeper, and there's some wonderful search capabilities in there. Let's say I'm going to grow arugula, or maybe I want to grow, chickens. Okay, free-range chickens, and you put in free-range chickens, or maybe you want to be a honeybee keeper. Put in honeybees, and it'll pull up all the assets that you need in that locality. Oh, by the way, it's that crowdsourcing. It relies on the best that the internet has done for us, which is to crowdsource the best knowledge available, right? Any problem you've got. Let's say you discovered some spots on your asparagus, okay? You can put in spots on my asparagus. You have maybe 100 people weighing in on it for you. This is the best crowdsourcing. These are communities of practice. Go ahead.
So Sonny, your advice, I assume, is to new farmers is to grow your network, right? To interact with existing farmers, and also to connect with existing platforms like the extension service that's out there, right? Yeah. Great advice. So what's the attitude? What's the attitude around that when interacting with, let's say, more experienced growers? What's the right attitude to have as a young, new farmer?
Right. So what I say to anybody and everybody, including somebody like me, is you always go in with the attitude, I'm here to learn, right? Even now, I've been in the business now for several decades, as you know, as an educator, as a professor, as a dean, and then as an Obama appointee in my position. Okay. I've been at it now since, after my PhD in 1979. So that's almost 40 years ago is when I started in this enterprise. And even now, I do not go in with the attitude, wherever I am, I never go with the attitude, I know a lot more than anybody else. I go into the attitude that I know a lot less than the other folks that are out there. And that's probably the best attitude to have in any interaction. It doesn't matter what interactions we have.
Yeah.
Even if you're a hedge fund manager, you got to have that same sort of an attitude, because you're always learning, right? Even old dogs can be taught new tricks, as they say. And so really the attitude should be, I'm here to learn. I want to be a sponge, and I want to absorb everything there is. So going back to, the question that you asked me, what should this new entrant coming in might ought to do in connecting with the people that have been around? As I said, the very first thing is, go to extension.org and see what's available, et cetera. They also make connections, by the way, to local farms and farm groups.
That's great. I didn't realize that. That's huge value.
And
that already bridges that mentorship as well, in addition to the other programs.
Bridging.
Okay.
All right. the same land grant universities that I referred to, such as Cornell and University of Maryland College Park, or University of Wisconsin, or Texas A&M, or whatever. We have these land grant universities.
Right.
Okay. So one could come to my website, my agency's website, nefa.usd.gov, and let's say you're a new person in New Mexico, and you have no clue who the land grant university there is, and you can either Google land grant universities in New Mexico, or you can come to my website and say New Mexico land grant university, and you'll get the information. Okay, and these land grant universities, by law, by tradition, have a responsibility to help these new entrants as well as the people that have been around. Again, not local extension agent. There's actual boots on the ground.
Right.
Okay. So let's say that you're, in Jackson County, which is Kansas City, Missouri. You're a new entrant there, and you're going to start a nice controlled environment agricultural enterprise, or maybe you got a couple of acres of land that you've got around your home that you want to grow vegetables, and you want to be able to, deal with the insect problems or the weed problems or the disease problems. Where's the marketplace and things like that? Look up Jackson County Extension. Yeah. The best part about today, as opposed to 30 years ago, is everything is available at your fingertips.
Right.
Okay. A lot of these land grant universities have also created apps for your smartphones and handheld devices. Again, courtesy of the funding that we provide. Okay. And you can use those apps, for example. One example, you're growing some fruit on your vegetables. Let's say you got an apple orchard, organic apple orchard that you're growing of these heirloom varieties of apples. Okay. And we've got apps available that can tell you for your local context, based on the weather, the temperature, and et cetera, as to what that insect may be, what that leaf spot looks like. Or you can take an image and zap it to your local extension person, and that individual can tell you, in like less than a half a day that, okay, you've got less than such problem. This is not what you're going to do. Okay,
So,
get to know your extension person, local person. That is a fantastic entree for you as a new farmer coming in to connect with, because that farmer, that extension person also knows all the other farmers in that area, and going to make that connection for you, make those networks.
And those best practices that are
Absolutely.
established for the region.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you've got to grow your network, use existing platforms, and like you said, I really like this one, go with an attitude of I'm here to learn. So that's some advice for the younger generation, let's say, or new entrants.